Hitting recording. Thank you, Scott. For those of you that are joining late, you're not hearing me, but we are going to have the YouTube video channel up. All of the webinars we do during the week. It takes about 4 or 5 hours to get them compressed and uploaded, but they do make it there, barring any crazy corruption of files. So welcome to the Trade of the Week, March 28th, almost at the end of the month, almost at the end of the quarter. We've got Andy with me. How's it going, Andy?
Hey, Steve, how's it going? Man, I'll
All
probably
right.
be going on mute here and probably hear my dog in the background.
Okay, no worries. Type away.
All right.
Answer questions, do what you got to do. But I'll start off here and let everybody know. This is the Trade of the Week webinar. Every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, we enter into this realm. Before we do, I've got some good stuff to talk about as usual, but the lawyers like us to remind people that we're not trying to come off here as financial advisors. We should be coming to you as software as subscribers, content providers. We are not here for personal finance planning. Leave that to the brokers who have their series licenses, took all the fiduciary responsibility tests, and the RIAs and what have you, the professionals. And of course, they'll charge you a small fee to probably put you in an index, but that's another story. Let's talk about what's not in the indexes, and we'll get to that. Reminding, since Scott showed us that we've got a really good majority of non-users in the room, I just want to remind the non-users that if you do sign up with Trade Ideas, we've got a lot of onboarding and a lot of concierge topics to help people, primarily the 4 webinars a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all at the same time, 5 p.m. Eastern. We do have a podcast now on Fridays. We're up to about a dozen of those now. And what you're looking at on the right side of the screen here is Barry Anderson's live trading room. Hundreds of people in there every single day. Not only watching Barry trade live, but answer questions, kick people out that are obnoxious. Barry runs a tight ship. It's a good room. Everybody likes it, and they especially love the price, free. So it's a great place to hang out once you've got Trade Ideas downloaded, because you're watching a professional trader use the product in real time, as well as a lot of other chat people in there, traders as well. Some good people. A great place to communicate and collaborate with different ideas and sharing of ideas. You'll notice there's even a technical support tab in there. A lot of people will go in there and say, hey, anybody know how I can get my gappers to go smaller or larger or whatever, just a random question, and you'll get some really good feedback. And then what's really not on this page, and is really the flagship of our onboarding, it's a $99 value in that when you sign up for at least 1 month of Trade Ideas and subscribe, you're able to go into our scheduler and schedule a 1-hour time with one of us, and we will sit down and share screens with you and kind of get a feel for what you're looking for, find out how the product can work best for you, create a few scans that you might be interested in, share a few scans that you might be seeing on our screens that you want. And it's a very comprehensive hour, and everybody that comes out of that hour has always said the same thing. It's like, wow, I really have a much better understanding now that you were able to spend some quality time with me and show me some of the things I'm interested in. So a lot going on when it comes to Trade Ideas and getting you the education and the help you deserve. So if you're thinking about kicking the tires today, Scott again is going to give you a really nice promo code to save 15% off of our first month, and included in that, as I said, would be the ability to sign up for a one-on-one session and really get a good head start for the times that you're probably not hanging out here in Barry's live trading room. Subscriber growth continues. This is the retail side. We have a whole other side with the Signal, Scott Trade, E-Trade, and whatnot. But when it comes to business to consumer, the retail growth really has started to take off in the last couple of years. The advent of the product that we call Holly was right about here. I joined as well the Trade Ideas community full-time here, and you joined right about here. And this needs to be updated because this orange subscriber growth is probably getting close to going off the charts. And there are many, many reasons for that, but that last slide certainly is one of them, the onboarding, and then of course our technology speaks for itself. Coming forward, we have a new technology. It's in beta test right now. It's kind of an intermediate / advanced feature. If you have an account with Interactive Brokers, we are in beta right now to do auto trading with them. Auto trading is basically two steps. You can right click and send a trade to Interactive Brokers with your own hand, or if you've got a couple strategies that you trust and like and you want to deploy. And again, it's a misconception. The Holly strategies are not available for auto trading. Well, those are proprietary and they're going to stay with us. But if you've got an alert or a strategy that you like and you want to turn loose and automate it and try and take the emotions out of it, well, this is going to be an interesting product for you. And again, we're probably 6-7 weeks away from getting out of beta. And once this Brokerage Plus tool comes out of beta, there's going to be a one-time annual license fee, I believe around $1,000. But for now, it's free. We're inviting people who want to try it and help us beta test it and get it finally spit polished and fine-tuned in a couple of months. So keep an eye out for that. It's only with Interactive Brokers. Maybe the next broker will have an announcement at some point, but we're going to get this one squared away first before we move on. The agenda for today is pretty normal, pretty simple. We'll take a look at the market recap, throw us a couple of curveballs for sure. We'll look at the Holly recap today, a couple of thoughts on a few trades in there. Trade of the week discussion was to sit on the hands and go to cash. We'll talk a little bit about that philosophy and maybe why that was derived for this week. And finding alpha with trade ideas, a couple of quick ideas, a couple of screen shares from some interesting things that were happening this morning in the live trading room. Got a couple of alerts that I'm going to set from a few different factions, and time permitting, I will qualify that, time permitting. We might take a few chart requests towards the end of the session. So let's hit escape on that. Let's get started. I'll call your attention to the GoToWebinar toolbar. It's a small toolbar that you guys all have available. There's a chat window down there, and we'll probably be dropping in a couple of items in the chat window. You can just click on the little triangle next to chat. What's in there right now is Steve's bio, so you can see a quick bio on who you're talking to, and trust me, a good 80% of that bio includes Andy Lindelof on Shotgun here as well. We've been hitting the markets together since '98, so a lot of history there between the two of us today. All right, so getting started, let's talk about what happened in the market. All right, let me go back. I might have to adjust my trend line, maybe not. Looks pretty good here. Let me open this way up. This was a trend line that was drawn from Andy's eyes, starting at these lows, touching here, 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 and here. And then basically, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We ended the week challenging that trend line once again, but closing it on that red spinning top. But what did we have going into that period? Well, we had a tremendous breakdown across the board in all of the indexes, red hot poker candle, whatever you want to call it. Market hasn't seen a red candle like that in quite some time, so it basically dropped all of our overbought signals into the next prevailing range. Now, again, I want to highlight this trend line that Andy drew. Not only did it hold on Friday, something interesting happened. It gapped down and gapped through it on Monday, which probably made a lot of people gasp at that gap, breaking down and opening up right below a trend line. And on that trend line, we have to consider not the price in the moment, but you guys have always heard me say, where is the closing price? Well, we had to really wait for the closing price, and what do you know? Kind of gave us a tip on Monday that the price had no intention of closing below this current trend line. So for all intents and purposes, I mean, this trend line is still intact because we base it off of closing prices for the most part, but a little sloppy for sure. Definitely getting a little sloppy. I had mentioned a week ago the Qs were feeling a little bit toppy. They made a higher high, another high here, and a higher high here, but they were losing traction in one of the indicators we call stochastics, and that wasn't more than a day or two before we got a big fall down. But look at the levels and how they managed to hold. I mean, this line was drawn back here from support and resistance. After our big red down day, we actually touched it on Monday, gap down, traded just to that line, and right back up. So these lines that we put in there, we're not doing for our health. They're definitely reference points, and it's kind of interesting to see that the Qs tried to trade above their reference point today, but were quickly rejected, and we closed back down inside the range. So the Qs basically close inside their range. The spiders are closed back down inside their range. The diamonds pretty much the same thing, back down into a prior range. So a lot of broken charts that were out there, and the IWM just doesn't want to do anything. It just wants to basically languish all of these charts for the most part. But we are kind of back in no man's land for the most part with this trend line still intact. Now, you know, barring these 2 green days, going into the weekend was really kind of sketchy. You know, there was a lot of talk, people try and attribute, why is the market down? Well, you were talking the vote, the healthcare vote, healthcare vote that. I don't really think it had as much to do as people say it did. The market was just looking for a reason to take a break, and we did. So going into the weekend, there was a lot of broken charts, and that's where we'll come into play when we talk about the trade of the week. So for now, these last 2 days, again, quite an impressive stick save with both the diamonds, the spiders, and the Qs. They are showing us that the bears do not have long to sit and rest on their laurels. That is for sure. So we're back in no man's land. Let's give these things a few more days to see where they set up in terms of the indexes and see what we get. Anything you want to add there, Andy? Unmute.
Yeah, no, there it is. Thank you. No, you covered it pretty well. It's interesting. We've been through this scenario over and over and over again the last 8 years. You have like a macro event that puts a scare into the market, only to be stick saved. Like you said, it's a recurring pattern and theme that we've seen over and over again. And yeah, one could mention the healthcare as being, I don't think it was that big of an issue anyway, but a reason maybe to shake people out. But nonetheless, yeah, we have these little scares and attempts to sell off, only to come storming back. So I think there's still some damage, you know, done technically in all the charts, and I think it has a ways to go before, you know, you can get very bullish again. But nonetheless, a nice bounce.
Yep. All right, let's move into an AI Holly recap. Couple interesting things today. I'm going to start off by looking at all the trades, and I'm sorting them by time of day. Of course, this is Pacific time, so those on the East Coast, my clock is correct. 6 minutes after the open, 10 minutes after the open, 17 minutes after the open, 19, we started to get some trades. And they were all long trades. Now, you guys have heard me often talk about, you know, the directional bias. Even though Holly did come in today with 1 short, 2 short, 3 short strategies, it looks like, the directional bias right off the open was long. Now, it was very confusing to our eyes because not a whole lot was happening. And the market in general, let's put up the spiders here. I'll zoom in my 15-minute time frame. Basically, let me just really zoom in here. That was yesterday, and then here was today right here. So we kind of opened up with a green candle, and then we hit a red candle, and we had a green candle, and we had a red candle. Then we started to build and slowly build. It was about 11 o'clock East Coast time. I'm going to mark this up right here. At that moment, basically it was obvious to us that the S&Ps had no interest in following up on this red candle. They just wanted to continue to move higher and a nice opening range breakout. Well, in the meantime, what I want to call your attention to is a screenshot that I grabbed, because in real time I'm sitting here looking at Holly's 6 or 7 long trades, but I'm looking at the histogram, and this histogram can really tell a good story. This was at 45 minutes after the open. What the histogram was telling us was basically kind of what the spiders were telling us. A lot of back and forth green candles, no real direction. So the profits were showing up in some cases and losses were showing up in other cases. But the histogram of the AI Holly can be a really interesting indicator in and of itself. And what it was telling us basically right here in the first 45 minutes of the market was, okay, yeah, the directional bias is long, but for the moment, there's a lot of noise out there. And sitting on our hands probably might be the order of the day, at least at that point in the moment as the market first opened. Let me put that back down, because as you can see, as I drew this line, basically once we started to break above the morning highs and started to move higher, it was pretty obvious that the S&Ps had no interest in moving lower, and that is kind of what we see here on the histogram of the risk on. Here was our early risk off, a little even more of a deeper pullback after I screenshot that. But once that market broke out, and again, if you guys are not paying attention to the backdrop of what's going on in this market, if you're just trading stocks individually, that's fine. Some stocks have great news and they're basically trading off news, but the market in general and a lot of the stuff that Holly's looking at is still really dependent on what is the backdrop, what's happening out there in the rest of the indexes. And so as it were, the directional bias was correct. Long was the order of the day. You don't even see one short attempt from Holly. It just took a little while to kind of get all cylinders firing. And again, I wanted to highlight the S&P after about an hour and a half. This is when the cylinders really started to fire. We never really looked back today. For those that are observant, Holly's continuing to do her part. She came out with a new strategy last night. It's called Carpe de Alpha. Carpe de Alpha came out 10 minutes after the open today, squeezed out 8 cents before the volatility forced Holly to do what we call a profit save, which is the exiting reason, which is more or less like a trailing stop is what we used to call it. So once the AI goes positive in a certain direction for a certain amount of price, the risk management algorithms do not allow that trade to go negative. But you can see 74 cents continued for the rest of the day. It was a really nice trade. So Carpe de Alpha actually came in today testing at only 55.7% with a 3.5 profit factor. So not really setting the world on fire in terms of win percentage. But look, in the real world, what happened today? We had 9 trades taken from the Carpe de Alpha. And they actually worked out to be 66.7%. So 2/3 of those trades were working today. And the very first one out of the blocks, CPC, was a really nice one. So new strategy for Holly, Carpe de Alpha. Hopefully we keep that going nicely on that particular measure. I think there's.
I'd like to say, Steve, even though there's only a winning percentage of 55%, look at the profit factor based on that.
Right.
That's huge. That's huge for that kind of winning. So
yeah, if we sort by profit factor, that was the second one in line for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it basically outperformed itself today, which was nice. What else did we want to talk about? Again, just to rehash the noise in the first hour of the morning, I'm going to bring this up for those of you that missed it. When you see a histogram that looks like this in the first hour, the AI is not seeing it. Sit on your hands until the AI is starting to see something more along the lines of this move right here, which of course corresponded with the nice breakout in the SPYs. Now, Andy had a couple of interesting observations, I think, on some sector type related things. We've talked about directional bias, and now we can also talk about sector bias. So go ahead.
Exactly, and before I do, I want to answer Richard's question because he put it out there early. It's a good place. You're right to discuss risk on and risk off. So Steve will show you the spiders again, and one could argue and have a very good argument that this is a risk-on day. I mean, we opened up, and even though we went back and forth, slopped around for the first, hour, and we popped to the upside and was pretty much, except for the very close there, we was in a nice upward trend all day long. This is and not only that, you see Holly taking all long trades, even though she came equipped today with some short strategies. None of those were triggered. So Correct. In the early going, you see her firing off all these longs, and then all of a sudden, you see the market kind of breaking out of a range to the upside. That is, you have to think it's going to be has a chance to be a very good risk-on day. Now, what we do for you, I mean, this is a tool that's provided for you because if you are just taking Holly's exits when Holly does on reduced risk, profit save, time stop, whatever reason she exits for, you got to look at the overall picture. This is when you put your trader's hat on and say, hey, Holly got stopped out of this, but I'm liking the way this trade is shaping up. I'm liking the way the market's shaping up. And I'm liking the way the sector is, if you're trading oil today, and I'm going to point those out in a minute, is shaping up. So there's a lot of good plays out there today in Holly that were risk on and very good reason to stay in those trades, potentially all the way to the close. And so what The risk on profit shows you basically is if you would have bought one share of every alert that Holly came out with, you would have made $2.38. You bought 1,000 shares, you would have made what, $2,000 or 2,380? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So a couple I want to highlight, because I get this question a lot of times, guys, is people say, how do you trade Holly? I don't know what to do. She fires off these alerts, and what I tell everybody is I like to trade Holly just like I do any of my other alerts, except I know going into it, I'm going to pay a little more attention because I know these have been optimized, maximized the evening before, and I know what my winning percentage chances could be, as well as the profit factor. So I give them a little more weight. And I thought there was and I was talking to Steve this morning as this was developing. I noticed some oil, gas, and oil stocks going off. The first one was right out of the gate was CRC. This ended up being a great risk-on trade. And if you were been paying attention to the market, you would have noticed when this went off and you looked at your sector analysis, you would have seen on top all the oil in sectors were at the top of your sector analysis. Which means, hey, that's where the money's flowing. A lot of money was flowing into there. If you look at, USO had a little pop, but anyway, this was an incredible trade, a great call in Holly. Now she got out for profit save because she had 16 cents, and we have her program that if she gives back half of it or whatever the formula is, she does not take a loser. She gets out at 8 cents. But the trade was, pretty much still intact. And the same thing with EOG. When EOG went off, I even sent to Steve a little message. I'm saying, you know what? I bet this ends up being the best trade of the day, because especially if oil, you can break out of its morning high there. And sure enough, I saw oil take off, and there was EOG, had a nice little pop there, some nice little gain in EOG on both the risk off and the risk on. But and there was another one. HCLP was another, provided some nice alpha in that one. When it broke through, she took 13 cents, but it got as high as I think maybe 60 or 70 cents in that one. So there was some really good plays in the oil sector today.
Not only that, look at that. What do we call that? We call that a horseshoe.
Yes, we do.
People haven't seen that. This is the kind of thing that you start to see different patterns in different ways and different Rorschach blocks. But there's an actual strategy called horseshoe up and horseshoe down, and you guys have heard me talk about it. It's actually this guy right here. But for whatever reason, this didn't show up on that strategy, but it was creating what we call a horseshoe. Anytime you have a gap up, a failure to fill the gap, and then a movement back in the direction of the gap, right there at those new highs, that just happens to be, look at that, just happens to be where all they called it. So that's why it's a U-shaped pattern. That's why I call it a horseshoe. And typically those can have 45 minutes to an hour of some nice follow-through intraday momentum. And sure enough, it did.
Absolutely. But anyway, yeah, so I thought there was a lot of sector bias today, because she had four oil and stock plays fire off, and it's kind of a nice bottoming pattern in that sector.
And that's part of the work, guys. I mean, we got to kind of know what stocks are what. You got to know what stocks are semiconductors, what stocks are oil sectors, what stocks are home builders. And if you're not using, the single stock window, you just double click on everything. CRC, natural gas, EOG, natural gas extraction, HCLP, actually that was metal and mining. But I know there was another one on here. But my point is, using the single stock window is a great way to start learning what some of these stocks are. If you want to go through and see if you can start to see a sector bias, it doesn't take long to click in and use that single stock window.
And there's one other, if I have time to talk about it, Steve, that I really like today, and I think I remember also sending you an IM when this one, and I said, and that was Delta.
Yes.
Yeah, right there. And this is one that on the 15-minute there, she actually top ticked it at the time at what was her entry? Right there at 46.21. She top ticked this, and it actually, right after she bought it, it came in. So this is one you could have actually got a better feel. But a lot of people complain, oh man, I couldn't get the feel that Holly did. Well, I'm telling you, in many cases, I see there's better feels than what Holly actually gets, because this one went to Holly's a trigger number and pulled back pretty hard. I was watching it, and I was telling him, you know, I said, you know what? I'd love this trade right here. I think it was down 15 cents at the time. Because pull up, love, LUV. And look at that. Look at the move when Delta was getting stuck down here in no man's land. I mean, just kind of chopping back and forth. And I see something like Love, JetBlue, I think had a nice run as well. And meanwhile, Delta is sitting here trying to push through the prior day's high. And I'm seeing a lot of its peers already do that. And I see Holly firing it off, which is statistically weighted, good chance that I'm going to make a profit in it anyway. That was golden to me. And sure enough, as soon as it popped through that 46.25 high, taking out the prior day's high, you had a nice move there, about 50 or 60 cents in Delta.
Yeah. I'll add to Delta also the entry, because I see a lot of people that they get focused on a few trades that might be pennies trades under $5, or they might be lower liquidity, and by the time they pulled up their E-Trade account they couldn't get it. This is the exact opposite. This thing gave you a lot of time really to enter this trade. Thing does 10 million shares a day average volume. So, for those that feel or have the incorrect assumption that Holly is just chasing low float stuff around, that's not the case at all. Anything at any time can certainly come through.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think that's a good. We're going to come back to a couple of Holly trades. I've got some more thoughts on that going forward, but for now, let's move into the trade of the week, which was cash. We did this a couple of times last year, and this was the first time in 2017 that we decided to do this. Now, typically, guys, we're using our favorite scans and technology and even Holly trades, and we're trying to curate a list of stocks that we can agree on as a small group that might be a great candidate for the trade of the week. And we really couldn't even come up with a small list of ideas. And so essentially, before these two green candles, what we had was a broken market that was hanging on to levels that we weren't certain whether or not they were going to be able to hang on to or not. And so it was a perfect time to just send out a reminder in trading, guys, that the money is not always made putting money to work. Sometimes Jesse Livermore said the best money he made was sitting on hands, meaning not jumping into the fray when there's chart setups that are not working, not waiting for your pitch, to use a baseball analogy. So this was a perfect week to just say, you know what, we just had a horrible break here. We got some big volatility back and forth. We're challenging these trend lines. We're challenging these other support lines. Let's say this is the perfect week to give ourselves 5 more days to let some chart setups maybe reoccur. And so from time to time, the trade of the week may or may not be cash. And, yeah, I didn't know this wasn't going to work out like this, but what if we had a gapped down? I had said yesterday, there's 3 scenarios on a gap down like this. We either gap down and keep going, and those are the scariest of all. That's when you really know it's on. It didn't even give you a chance to bounce it. Scenario number 2 is to gap down and then just trade all the way back up, kind of like we did. Scenario number 3 is to gap down, trade up midday, maybe hit this trend line or resistance, and then roll over and do an upside down horseshoe and close back at lows. That would have been extremely ugly as well. Well, 2 out of the 3 opportunities that we had were for ugliness, and we didn't. We got the 1 out of 3, bounced right back. We didn't know that was coming, but now we do. It's a constant reassessment. It's a constant reanalysis. Okay, good to know. I know now on Tuesday afternoon that I didn't know on Friday that the buyers are still back in here, kick stick saving and buying those dips, because back here they sure weren't. They sure were not. So never, ever, ever will we make an apology for putting out cash set on your hands as a trade of the week, because 2 out of 3 scenarios on this gap down could have occurred, and it could have been really ugly, and we could have been talking about, when things aren't setting up, cash is a position, and cash can actually save you money, and a penny saved is a penny earned. So that is the philosophy on going to cash this particular week. Hopefully we'll get something to set up nicely, especially after these 2 opening days here. We'll see if we can have something set up. Anything you want to add on that call this week of cash?
No, I agree with you, because I was looking for opportunity myself, and it was far and few between. I really couldn't find a whole lot, and I totally agreed.
Sure, I'll go ahead and drop that in there for you. The horseshoe scanner. What I'm doing is I'm putting it in the chat window right now, and I'm going to show you something cool. Okay, there it is. All I'm going to do is give you the horseshoe up. If you want the horseshoe down, you're going to have to make it yourself. And this is probably a great example to show some of the newer people in the room how easy it is to take a directional bullish scan like we have here and create the inverse without having to do any programming. So all you guys do, that for those of you that want to take that cloud link, who asked for it specifically, I think Chris, can't recall, doesn't matter. Rick, thank you, Rick. So Rick and whoever else wants to grab that code, copy the link and then load from cloud, file load from cloud, and it will be right there waiting for you. But once you've got the horseshoe up, all you got to do is duplicate it. And then on your duplicate, let me grab my duplicate, go into configure. And some of you have probably been wondering, what the heck is this flip button for? Well, the flip button is going to invert everything on the first window. Now my second window is the exact opposite, horseshoe down. And so now I've got a working copy of the horseshoe down. I'm not exactly sure how this one worked out today. Looks like it didn't. The market got a hold of it. But I'm going to close that. But for those of you that want the second piece of the horseshoe up, the horseshoe down, it's that easy for you. Just duplicate it, configure it, flip it, and then save it with a new name, and you got yourself a directional gap down scanner. Thanks for that question that reminded me to do that. All right, so we talked about trade of the week, cash. We talked about why we selected it and just shared a scanner. You know, Dan in the mornings is in Barry's trading room, and he gave me the screenshot. He loves to do screenshots of his account, and he wanted to call out the fact that, you know, not only was DFFN coming through our alpha predator alerts this morning, which here it is right here, DFFN in alpha predator. I know it's in there somewhere. There it is. DFFN. Well, he picked up some, and he's been holding it for a while. Also, CBio. I saw somebody earlier in the day was asking about CBio. I'll get back to the chart in a second, but this is the module that you saw earlier for IB. So basically, when Dan saw DFFN, it was basically just right-click, trade. And then, well, you can't see it because it's going off my screen, but it says, you know, send to, try it again, right-click, trade DFFN, and it would go right to that. And if it was enabled with IB, we could do a quick trade with just a right-click of the mouse. Not fully automated, but close enough. So Dan grabbed some DFFN this morning, and he also wanted me to remind people that Trade Ideas is not just for jumping in and jumping out. He kept that position open, loves the way it looks, and I agree with him the way it looks. You know, there was really no reason for Dan to sell any of this today. If we take a look at the end of the day, DFFN, you know, this is where the alpha is being captured, guys. It happened about an hour and a half into the day, so we already had a couple candles, and then it rocketed straight up, gave us a bit of a pullback, but boy, oh boy, this thing closed on highs, and I imagine that's one of the reasons Dan is keeping it. He's probably looking to keep it and maybe, hopefully, for his sake, maybe even get some sales off up there at that level of interest. So this is how we look left, see what's in there. But for those of you who really like the fast-moving stuff, the Alpha Predator is something that is used a lot in Barry Anderson's trading room. CBio, again, somebody asked about CBio. The Alpha Predator caught CBio again today as well, was all over it. And look at this right here. Here we go, CBio pretty much on the open. Right there. So there's a few different names in here, but for the most part, the Alpha Predator is going to be catching the names that you guys wind up seeing that the other chat rooms are talking about. You know, these are the stuff that are low floaters. They can move really fast. So for those that have that type of, you know, risk tolerance, these things can move really fast in the morning. And you can watch CNBC and you can listen to them talk ad nauseum about Snap, and they can send out their meaningless analysts who have no other agenda but for the people that sign their check. I mean, let's be honest, people. If you guys ever tried to like grade an analyst on where the stock price went after they gave an opinion, I mean, they would be fired. So they're not working for us. And CNBC is a corporate mouthpiece news organization, which I'm proud to say I have not turned on for over 4 years. I really don't care anything that they have to say. What I care about is what the data is showing me, and there is always alpha moving somewhere. Okay, and so I don't want to confuse myself with what's going on TV and what they think that we should be talking about when there's stuff like CBIO and DFFN moving off of these alpha predators. a great point to point out is, watch this, guys. For those of you who don't have a Trade Ideas subscription, you're probably thinking, that sounds interesting. I might like to get my hands on that. Well, this is how easy it is to get your hands on it. You basically download it. Once you've opened up your toolbar, you go to New Channel Bar. There it is right there. And then here's our channels. And we just so happen to have a channel called Alpha Predator. So if you're somebody who's looking for the action, you could basically sit on this channel, you know, for the first hour of the day. And there's DFFN, and there's the names of all the familiar ones coming through today. So it's going to point you in the right direction as to where you should be looking. Certainly better than trying to see what CNBC wants to steer us towards. And so once we're on these channels, just a point of navigation, you can see it's a channel as itself. I could try and configure these, but I'm not going to make anything stick. So it gives us a good little hack here. Well, what if I don't want to sit on this channel all day and I want to go back to my other channel where Holly is? Well, all you got to do is right-click anything you've ever seen in a channel bar window, save it to your cloud. Now it's in my cloud. Now we just go back and we load the layout, which Trade Ideas opens up to every day, the default layout, and we are right back where we started. But now I have the added ability to add one more scanner if I wanted to, and that would be the Alpha Predator that I took from the Alpha Predator channel. And what's nice about it is I'm not stuck with the configurations that they gave me from the channel. Now I can go in, I can configure, I can move things around, I can change columns, I can add columns, I can change colors, I can change sort. It's now my copy to do with what I want. And it's a real simple hack. Anything you see on the channel bar that you like, right click and save it to cloud, and then bring it back to your home base here, which is the default layout. All right.
Steve?
Yep.
Yeah, they were, if you guys asking for the Alpha Predator, the alert. I mean, that was the top list that you can find in the channel, but you had actually the alert one up, the A window.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they don't have that on here anymore, do they? Interesting.
No.
You guys are sharp, man. You guys won't miss a thing. Yes. Be happy to do that. I'll just pull that out off the desktop here. That was a top list that I was working off of.
No, you had. I think that was maybe Dan had sent that over to you. I'll see if we can't find it, guys.
Here's the way
you can find the one with the alert.
When you got a library as big as mine, Alpha Predator, T window, T window, T window. That's not what we're looking for. That's this
A. That one. There you go.
That's an A window. I'm going to take it off of history. It's on real time. Good. All right. Yeah. Hey, look what's on there, CBIO. All right, guys, so we're going to save and share. We're going to save and share, which gives me the ability to paste the code into the chat window once again. So let me type it out here, Alpha Predator alert window, and then Control V. And for those that want the alert, actual Alpha Predator alert, there you go. All right, good to know. Okay, good. I see questions are getting answered. Where are we? So we were talking about, chasing alpha, trying to find alpha, hang out in Barry's room. This is the kind of stuff you're going to see in there. You're going to see Dan in there in real time demonstrating, eating his own dog food, so to speak. If you're not so much inclined to use, the Alpha Predator and the quick moving stuff, that's your first best victory, is to realize, hey, that's not for me. And in trading, you should never be doing something that goes against what you feel is right for you, because trading is not a science. It's subjective, and it's an art form. And everybody knows where they're comfortable and where they're not comfortable, and what time frame and what speed. So if you're not somebody who's comfortable, doing the Alpha Predator Pro and the real fast moving stuff, well, there's another way you can trade, which is basically, using price alerts and finding stocks in a calm sort of mind, and then using price alerts. A lot of these have been triggered, and a lot of these are still working. And I'm going to set a couple here before the end of the moment. But for the most part, I'm noticing that my notes telling me the stuff that still seems to be working. I see a lot of 52-week highs with big short floats in here, nor more short float, trend change lubricant. So I've got a few that that we're going to mark up here, and giving a couple of ideas. Can you please give a hint on how to use TI for trading options? I'll be happy to do that real quick. Chi, we have a channel. It's called Options Channel. Basically, I would go to that channel. Where is it? I must have missed it. Where's my Options Channel? Do you see it?
Yeah, hold on, keep going.
Active, energy, now trending.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, options. So I'm not going to click on it, but there's 3 or 4 scans on there. And to answer your question, Chief, it's basically going to be our technology monitoring anomalies in the put-call ratios and in the puts and in the call volumes, how much above normal a certain stock symbol might be doing in the way of options. And so the theory goes, if there's a bunch of people piling into options, maybe there's something we want to pay attention to. But anyway, yeah, getting back to what I was going to say, the other way is to not so much maybe chase, the fast alerts in the morning or chase every blinking light that you see or everybody on Twitter. Maybe try to set up some strategies and then set an alert and let those trades come to you. So I'm going to set a couple. I'm going to start with the trend change lubricant, and this is stuff that's looking for trend changes in the big picture. Not only that, but looking for a little bit of contingency of short float. So EAT, essentially this guy here, EAT, has a 15% short float, and earnings are in 20 days, so we're safe on that. But here's where I really want you guys to imprint. Where am I going to put that line? I'm hoping you guys all see the same place that I see that I want to put this line, all right? Prior support back here, current resistance for the most part right here. Didn't quite get above that level. I'm going to use the high of this wick as our current 43.55, we'll call it, is the actual penny above. Right click, create price alert. My notes are trend change lubricant. This thing has 15% short the float. I'll just leave it at that. And so if this thing triggers tomorrow, there could be some shorts. They're going to say, oh boy, we just put in a higher low. This thing's basically rounding out on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and capitulate, which for the shorts we all know means capitulating means buying back the stock and covering with a buy, and that creates a buying frenzy. So that's one that I think is interesting, EAT. FI, I think, is also interesting. FI is trying to kind of do a horseshoe on the daily pattern. This thing just had earnings recently, and it looks like this gap is really trying to hold. I'm just going to do the most simple of all horseshoe setups, which is a gap up, a failure to fill the gap completely, the price turns back up, and as soon as it goes to new highs, we're going to be alerted. So I'm going to create price alert on FI, 17% short, but what I really like is the horseshoe. So I'm going to give myself that extra bit of notation. So there's 2 alerts I've just created for myself. Maybe they trigger tomorrow, maybe they don't, but it's a way of kind of slowing down things a little bit in a less emotional environment. I'm going to go to Squeeze Me, since we're on the short squeeze bandwagon here at the moment. Where is Squeeze Me? That's one that I usually keep minimized. All right, here we go. So this particular one, if you haven't been with me recently, this thing goes all the way down. It's sorted by short float. I don't know what the heck's going on with this SITE. It must be an anomaly. It says there's 872%. I'm just going to avoid that altogether. But what this is a list of stocks that are all the way down to 25% short the float, but there's one big caveat in here. These guys are making new 52-week highs. True. Well, that was a trade of the week back in late January. Well, look at that. This thing is just continuing to do what I would hope and expect it to do, and it's freaking the shorts out and probably frustrating them to no end. 1, 2, 3, 5 good days of candles here. This thing is now making 52-week highs today, yesterday, with 44% short. I don't know about you, but that's probably a nightmare scenario that I would be sitting in a stock and maybe my hands were tied behind my back and I couldn't cover, and this damn thing was going to 52-week highs. So we're trying to turn other people's pain, meaning short, stubborn, let's add stubborn short sellers to that list, trying to turn their pain into our gain by using this list, which shows us 2 things. 1, high short float, 25% or higher, and these things are within 5% of making a new 52-week high. So true, I'm going to leave that one alone. That one's triggered. That one's I was talking about that one ad nauseum this weekend, but I want to talk about a couple that I think are shaping up. VMware is one of them, and one of the reasons I like it is it just keeps kind of coming back for more. bounces off, comes back for more, higher low, higher low. So basically, this red line here has already been set. I'm going to set it again just so I have them all together and I can give them to you at once. Create price alert, 52-week high, and 26% short the float. Those are my notes for that one. I'll go ahead and create a double there because I'm going to batch them all together for you guys and share these alerts. The other one is a home builder, KBH. KBH has been frustrating people with 26% short the float. Got above that line and stayed above that line. Look how prior resistance became support. And it looks like for the most part now, we've got 3 rough areas here of highs where supply came right back in. That's going to be our 52-week high, guys. So I'm going to look at the high of this candle. It's going to be 1990, so we'll go 1991, right click, create price alert, 52-week high, and a short float of 26%. That's all I really need to know. If that thing goes off, I will be prepared for it. All right, so those are the 2 that I have, again, from the Squeeze Me. I'm surprised nobody's asked yet. Let's go ahead and share Squeeze Me. Copy all, paste, sending it into chat window, Squeeze Me, Control V.
Somebody asked for a trend change as well.
Trend change, okay, let's do that one as well. Right click, save and share, copy all. I'll title it trend change and Control V. And there you go, the cloud link for those as well. For those of you listening at home, don't have the option to go into the chat window and grab some of these, feel free to email me directly, steve@trade-ideas or info@trade-ideas, and we can get a copy of these cloud links to you. Not a problem. Okay, the 3 last ones that I was going to share kind of dovetails with something that I showed last week. If you're not aware, the new version, the newest version, new beta version, has a few items. And one of the items that we can do is we can take a particular trade. Not only can I right click it and say trade it at IB, but I can right click INSY and say, you know what, actually send INSY to a symbol list that I call Holly. So I actually have a scanner that is called Holly's New Highs. And it's not filtering for anything, for God's sakes. The only thing it's filtering for is to make sure that it's at least doing relative volume of 1 or normal. Otherwise, I don't want to see it. And it's at least doing 150,000 shares today. But other than that, all this is a symbol list called Holly. And where I get these symbols are at the end of the day, I'm going to go through and find things that I like. So there's 3 of them on here that I actually kind of like today. The first one was CRC. We did talk about. I'm going to put a follow through on the high of CRC. Basically, the high of that candle is 1404. So I'll go 1405. I'm sorry, create price alert. Here is where I'm going to tell myself Holly, new high. So what this tells me is that at one point, the AI was all over this thing. And then without forgetting about it for a couple days, we've dropped it into a new high. And so this is basically CRC is one that I don't want to lose track of today. And what did I say the price alert was going to be at? You recall? Shoot, let me go back here. It was going to be at 1405. So let me try that again. 1405. Holly new high. Okay, there's another one. 5. I like the way 5 is looking. In the bigger picture, recently had earnings and breaking out of this long congestion down here. So essentially, at some point, it might want to move back above this congestion that we have. I'm just going to use the top tick of this wick right here, which essentially is 48.85. We'll call that one Holly new high. And then lastly, and I went through all these today, and these are the only 3 that I'm going to add, which I've already done. I've already added to my list, again, by right-clicking, send to, symbol list, Holly. Now, you guys, if you're interested in doing this, you got to create your own symbol list. You can call it whatever you want, but calling it Holly is probably the easiest thing to do. But creating a symbol list is no more difficult than just going to Tools, Symbol List, Create New List, call it Holly, launch the list, and then you can start adding names to it because you'll now have a folder called Holly, which will allow you to right click and send symbols to them. Okay, so I believe we marked up 5. The last one that I'm going to share with you guys, and I also got from Holly, was Vico that I thought was interesting. Let's take a look at why I like Vico. Bigger picture here. Basically, I see a kind of a double top, and I see Vico building in kind of a cup and handle. This thing, you know, could be a week away from triggering, but nonetheless, I still like it. So I'm basically just going to create a price alert at those 2 highs and call it Holly New High. All right, so those of you that have the premium version, you'll see that a red dotted line is now indicated on these charts. That will switch to a green dotted line if and when that price trigger triggers. Not only will that happen, I will get an audible alert, and I will have my price alerts pop up right in my face and say, hey, you know, here, you liked this a few days ago, you know, do you like it now? Or as an example of my price alerts, because I need those. Where did they go? Symbol list. Did I lose my price alerts? Oh, there they are. Boom, it'll pop up like that. And for those of you who want to create a sound, right click, actions, play sound, and I've got my sound set up as text to speech. So all I'm doing is hearing the actual symbol and turn the volume up as loud as I dare. All right, so we set a few items today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on created, and here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 working items. I'm going to right click in these, and I'm going to share these 7 selected items, copy all. This will be the last thing I drop into the 7 shared items price alerts. And so I'm dropping those in. For those of you that have the premium service, it's the same drill. Just save the code link, and then when you load from cloud, those 7 price alerts that are working are going to pop into your price alerts as well, and they will maintain a status of working until they trigger, and we'll all see them at the same time together. One more thing, you know, Holly, let me just go quickly to history here. You know, yesterday I was so impressed with JSO. Today I was impressed with JSO. This was a stock that I put in Holly that I found interesting. It was kind of doing a horseshoe. So I did not, you know, miss out on the opportunity to see that JSO was moving higher today, simply because I took a moment to right click and dump that symbol that I liked from Holly's call that day into the Holly's New Highs, and this allows me to not forget it. You know, probably once a week on the weekends when I do my homework, I'll go through and call out and take out some of the charts that are breaking down. But, you know, yesterday, I want to show you, let's go to history. Yesterday, there was a stock that was just lighting it on fire. And, you know, we were alerted to it pretty darn early. AAIO. I mean, let's take a look at the 15-minute chart here. Look at this yesterday. This was basically the opening range yesterday. Look at the daily chart yesterday. Beautiful breakout. This thing broke out to 52-week highs yesterday. So once again, I would have missed that had I not followed up at the end of the day, and this is becoming a new habit that we're all going through, is just keeping an eye on some of the charts that are really setting up nice that we see on Holly that we would have never seen. So that's what I'm using the Holly's New Highs for, and dropping in certain names at the end of the day that I want to keep an eye on. Not a bad idea, because you didn't miss JSO and you didn't miss AAOI today with that particular strategy. All right, so that's it for today. That's what we got for you. We're back at the top of the hour. I'm going to bring in Scott, and again, remind you guys, if you like what you saw and like what you heard, he's going to give a promo code, and when you consider that promo code and the $99 value of the one-on-one training, it's a pretty good deal for your first month of trade ideas. So pop on in here, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, gotcha.
A couple items I want to remind everyone about before we give you the code are we have a podcast that gets released every Friday. So there'll be a fresh one up on Friday, and usually comes out about 2 hours after the market closes, just in time for your weekend. All you need to do to get it is search for Trade Ideas Podcast in your favorite podcast app like iTunes, Overcast, Stitcher, something like that, and subscribe to it, and then you'll have a fresh podcast as soon as it comes live on Friday. Past hosts, well, it usually includes Dan Merkin, our CEO, and Jamie Hodge. Also, guests include Steve Gomez, Barry Anerson. We've had a couple interviews with Phil Smolin, Brad Williams, David Afariat. So it's very informative, very interesting. Just go ahead and subscribe to that. Get a fresh one this weekend and every week after that. We also have a little thank you for joining us today, and that's a product code. You can use Holly all week, all caps, the way you see it on your screen. Or you can also download a handout. If you go to the handouts panel on your GoToWebinar interface, expand that by clicking on the plus or the arrow next to it. There's a blue link right there with a PDF you can download that contains this and some other information like good contact information. So this code takes 15% off the total for your first month or year of trade ideas, either premium or standard. And an important thing to remember is even standard trade ideas includes a full one-on-one training session that lasts an hour. So you get the hour of power training session when you sign up for Trade Ideas. We suggest spending a little time with the program first, attending the trading room for a few days, watching some videos so that you have a good idea of what you want to cover during your hour of one-on-one training, and then going to the support section, clicking on training, and signing right up for your preferred time and date that's available. Again, you can use that code before the end of the month to save 15% off your first month or year. Any questions about this, go ahead and email us, info@trade-ideas.com. Of course, you can reach out to Steve or Andy directly at steve@ or andy@. Follow Steve at Today Trader on Twitter. Dan Merkin is at Trade Ideas 1. We also have at Trade Ideas. Jamie Hodge, one of our other educators, our director of education, is at QuantBot. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/TradeIdeasPro. Just go ahead and locate that and follow our page. We post some different content there sometimes you can share out with your friends and kind of spread the Trade Ideas love. Or if you have a billing question, give us a call during regular hours on the west coast of the U.S., and we'll help you right out. Thanks, Steve and Andy. Tomorrow will be the Q question and answer demo session with Dan Merkin and Brad Williams at the same time as this webinar. Y'all will get an email inviting you in about 25 or 30 minutes. Richard, the Director of Education, is Jamie Hodge. He'll be on Thursday's webinar. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Andy.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. We'll see you guys next time.